So hi, welcome to this episode of History Hunters. We are in Jackson, California, Amador County, beautiful part of the California Motherlode. This community dates back to the Gold Rush era, and we're going to check this town out, some of the buildings that are still standing, including Constitution Saloon right behind me. Let's go ahead and start out our tour of Jackson with a look at this building, the old Native Sons of the Golden West. This is Constitution Saloon, circa 1860 to 1917. It's also the Women's Club of Jackson for the better part of the 20th century. This sign over here talks about this being 1860 as the Constitution Saloon, making it one of the oldest permanent buildings in Jackson. It was first owned by William Phoenix, the first sheriff of Amador County. The brick and stone structure survived the devastating fire of 1862, which consumed much of Jackson. A historic Main Street is down this direction, but if you come up the hill, you will see this amazing Art Deco county courthouse for Amador County. It no longer is used as a courthouse, I understand. It looks like it's seen its better days. If you get up close to this old Amador County courthouse, you can see just how badly the paint is chipping. Check it out. We have determined how badly this building is chipping with its paint, but I want to point out something right here on the ground that's a historical artifact in itself. It says, under this tablet is the courthouse well, dug in 1851, 52 feet down. For a generation, it was the main water source for the community. That was cool. This plaque was dedicated in 1940. Check it out. A little old well. I guess the way it looked back then.
The best paint for that. The whole building's peeling.
What'd you say?
I said they didn't choose the best paint for this building. The whole thing's peeling.
Yeah, well, it probably dates back to the 1930s.
And they've never painted it since the 30s? Really?
I'm just taken aback by this Art Deco facility. I'm glad that it's still here, but I'm wondering what they're going to do with it. Is it just my imagination, or do those designs above the ground floor windows look like giant Legos? A little clarification needs to be added here about the Amador County Courthouse and the Hall of Records. The building here is actually comprised of 3 different original buildings wrapped in a new facade added in 1939 and 1940 by the Works Progress Administration, or the WPA. The brick courthouse on the left was completed in December 1863. A neighboring building was completed as the Hall of Records in 1893. And the courthouse was expanded into the space between the 2 buildings around 1920. The 3 buildings were merged and given an Art Deco renovation in 1939, with the combined courthouse building rededicated in June of 1940. The county abandoned the facility in 2007 after building a new courthouse. Right there is the St. Patrick's Church. We are not in San Francisco. We are in Jackson, California. And the sign on this building right here indicates that this was a law office built by James F. Farley, who was a U.S. Senator. In 1860, he built this structure. It's still here. They still have church here. This very quaint United Methodist Church, which first occupied this site in 1853, has a healthy church still here today. Rolling down Main Street in Jackson is usually a visual overload with all of the historic brick facades lining both sides of the street. There are hotels and restaurants, boutique, gift, antique, and candy shops. There are details on the buildings that can only be appreciated during a stroll. Capping it all off at the end of the street is the historic National Hotel, where we'd be spending the night. All sorts of famous dignitaries have stayed here over the years, including actors and governors. The hotel check-in was a fascinating experience with so much to take in. The antiques filling the lobby, the stone fireplace, and vintage lamps hanging from the ceiling. We noticed a very old oil portrait of Ulysses S. Grant hanging on the wall, as well as a large painting of the National Hotel back in the horse and buggy days. A cubbyhole under the staircase featured some antique telephone equipment as well. Sarah wanted to, but resisted banging on the bell on the counter. But my mind was on the photo of John Wayne sitting on a table by the registration desk. It was taken when the legendary actor visited Jackson February 15th and 16th in 1963 and engaged in a round of stub poker and drinks at the Wells Fargo Club across the street. Knowing that gambling was illegal, the bartender sent Wayne and his company across the street to the National Hotel to continue their game, which apparently didn't go too well for the Duke. The story has Wayne losing thousands of dollars in a wager, and that he tried to pay with a check. When the demand was for cash, Wayne was allegedly held at the hotel until he could pay his debt. In retrospect, that signed check was probably worth more than his debt. Now, if that's not a true story, it's certainly an interesting one. This hotel actually has a portrait of Leland Stanford, Governor of California. So this is what our room in National Hotel in Jackson looks like. How's the bed feel?
Squishy.
Squishy?
It feels like memory foam.
Is that good or bad?
I don't know. I don't think I've ever slept on memory foam, except for the little toppers.
After checking out a room, Sarah and I took a short stroll down Main Street in search of a good dinner house before retiring to our room for the night. I was surely eager to check out more of the town in the morning.
Plaskies? No, what's that? What's that window they're looking in?
Oh, Plasty's. No,
Plasty's?
no, that's
the candy store. When they're looking at the Red Ryder BB gun.
I don't remember what it is.
Baseball uniform on the left of you.
Yep, that's an old baseball uniform.
All they had changed out all the street signs. Somebody took it to the scrapyard. When I happened to go there, I was doing.
The glob?
Yeah, from this angle, the pillar covered up the E, so it looks like the glob.
So this building here, I think, goes back to 1863, and it housed the Amador Lodge of the Masons, originally established in 1854, but the building's not that old. And it was also owned by Frank Rocco, who also used it as a hall, and was also a boxing ring and an athletic club. So Sarah and I spent the night here at this very historic National Hotel, which was once known as the Louisiana Hotel, or Louisiana House. After it burned down, they rebuilt this beautiful hotel. It's very nice. So while Sarah stays up in the room, I am going to show you some other historical aspects of this main street, which is quite empty now because it's Sunday morning. But I want to talk to you about the brick building back there. It's the Gallo Hotel. It was right there that wine tycoon Ernest Gallo, or Ernesto Gallo, was born March 18th, 1909. So there's a plaque on the wall here that indicates that this was the Laurie Gallo Hotel and Astor House. You'll see up there it says it's Webb Hall, built in 1898. However, this is where the parents of Ernest and Julio Gallo, the ones who created the wine empire in Modesto, California, lived at one time, and unfortunately they had a very unfortunate ending in Fresno, where it was a murder-suicide. The father killed the mother in Fresno and then killed himself, leaving the two boys. It seems that every town on the railroad had a hanging tree, and Jackson was no different. In fact, the hanging tree was right in this location. I think at least 7, 8 people were hung here. You'll see a marker that was placed here in 1937 that talks about this as being the location of the hangman's tree. Now, just blown away by the fact that that marker was placed in the ground before my mother, and there it is, it's still there. This building here was built in 1854. Just about every building on this street is at least 80, 90, 100 plus years old. This is a very historic town. In fact, usually there's cars lining the streets, and I think because the businesses haven't opened up, being that it's Sunday morning, it looks like it's completely a ghost town here, but it's kind of cool. It allows me to get in here and tell you about some of the buildings here. Now, just up Church Street here, you'll see this building. It says 1863 at the top, the Morelia block. And then we've got these two old brick buildings over here as well. Now, yesterday we visited the courthouse up there. These are very old brick buildings dating back to the 1800s. Unfortunately, they don't have marker. Well, this one has a marker on it. Native Sons of the Golden West building, number 31. It says the Native Sons of the Golden West organized near this site in 1884. The building was the site of the C. and Marshall Circus lot in 1851. That's pretty cool. I think it's very cool how all these buildings are just steeped in such great history. So I was just walking up to the Globe Hotel here, and I noticed something that I need to show you. You can see where they actually filled in what used to be a larger window opening, because they have bricks here that just don't light up. Also, because right here you have the window pins that they left in place, which were used for the outer doors that covered the windows. I don't know why they did that, because I think the original building as designed looks so much more attractive. And see, they did it here again, where a door, I think a window may have been located at, maybe a door, but more pins are still there. I think I read that this structure was probably put in place in 1852, but nobody really knows. The Globe Hotel right here at the corner of Main and Court Streets. So this is the 1857 Levi and Company building, and when most of Jackson burned in 1862, the city fathers commandeered the basement of this building. Notice that it's brick and did not burn, for a county jail, and it held many prisoners until about 1864 when the new courthouse and jail were finished. Now I'm going to go down here to the beginning of Main Street and show you something that's interesting that dates back to, I believe, 1900 or thereabouts. Now this isn't that old. It's 1931. It's the Krabenhoft building. It sure looks like it either served for offices or some kind of manufacturing company. So right outside of the Jackson Fire Department at the beginning of Main Street is a very unique item. I'll show it to you. Apparently there was a rock drilling contest here in 1908. This thing is beeping like crazy. So Labor Day celebration on this site in 1908, there was a double jack drilling contest that took place here, and a 31.5-inch hole was drilled in this granite in 15 minutes. The contest was won by Matt Thomas and Pete Veslovich. And check it out. Like they drilled like a number of holes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, possibly 6, and they put this in here. This guy's died long ago. This is Highway 49. Like things are picking up this morning. And you might be curious as to what this plaque is. It's dedicated to somebody who gave his life for the city of Jackson on November 3rd, 1929. And I'm going to assume that he died in a fire or something. I'm going to have to check that out. Somebody has left flowers for Mr. Thomas. Now, some of those names on that plaque I remember from the cemetery, Podestas. I'm really glad that I came down here on a Sunday morning so I could photograph some of these buildings without cars in front of them. It's just amazing motherhood community. It's one of those that I think a lot of people from the Central Valley like to come up and tour on the weekends and enjoy the change of pace, because everything up here is hilly and down Central Valley is very flat land. Apparently they used to have paid parking here, but they've eliminated that. We actually ate there on the ground floor at the Brick House Brews. It's a pretty cool place to eat. And if you have a sweet tooth, this place is the place to hit. They have just about every kind of candy in there. Now this is now Ladies First Boutique. However, back in the 1890s, this was a sausage factory, believe it or not. It's one of the brick buildings that was built here after the fire of 1862. Now, as fire tends to do, it can completely wipe out entire towns. And back in the gold rush days, we were talking about buildings that were mostly made out of wood, and they had no chance of surviving fire. So after devastating fires, they would often replace the buildings with brick buildings. A little bit harder to do and more expensive, but it lasted a lot of time. I mean, some of these buildings here are still here from the 1860s. 16 Jackson Street was the Harris Clothing Store. In the 1850s, it was a stock corral, post office, post-fire brick building. Adambrowski's cigar factory from 1882. So this building was built in 1863 and 1880. That building is now the Gold Mine Jewelers. According to this plaque, number 6 Main Street here in Jackson was a U.S. bakery and the early Amador Dispatch newspaper, and that the U.S. Cavalry cordoned the newspaper office during the Civil War. The editors were arrested and escorted to Alcatraz. I just can't imagine what the newspaper editors did to get arrested and carried to Alcatraz. I'm gonna have to look into that one. That might be an episode all of itself. This is the Wells Fargo Express and Banking Company, established here in 1855. It was estimated that $100 million in gold was handled by this office. Established here in 1852. And it looks like it was also the Union Hotel and Oddfellows Hall. Civil War political rallies were staged here, a longtime site of the Wells Fargo Agency. Looks like the building's cracking up there on the second floor. It says 1855 at the top, IOOF. Now the first structure on this site was built in 1851. The bar portion of the building was built in 1856 as a drugstore. That was the Ginocchio family that owned the building from 1857 until present owners, present being in 83. Two-story section built in 1858 was used as a general store. Now, while Wells Fargo had a presence here in Jackson since the 1850s, you might take a look right over here and see that they're still here in this rather modern-looking building. So from Jackson, California, I want to thank you for joining us on this episode of History Hunters. I hope you enjoyed visiting this location, even though you didn't actually get to visit it, but you visited with us, and we certainly appreciate it. Thank you so much. So if you get up to this Art Deco building, if you get up to this old Amador County Courthouse real close, you can see how badly the chip is painting. Did I just say that? If you get close enough to this old Amador County Courthouse, you can see just how badly the chip. If you get close enough to this old Amador County, if you get close enough to this old Amador County Courthouse, you can see how just bad. If you get up close to this old Amador County Courthouse, you can see just how badly the paint is chipping. Check it out.